Hello everybody, my name is Peter Sterlacci and welcome to my next episode of Personal Brand Mechanics Interview. I'm the founder of Believe, Become, Be Your Brand, where I work with on-the-move careerists to help them shift gears, get out of the saddle, and sprint to career success. So many of you who know me, you know that I'm just a passionate cyclist, and that's really the motivation for me to start this interview series, because I've come across some pretty amazing people through social media and in my own work who I like to call mechanics of personal branding. In other words, these are folks who have tools and techniques, basically a toolbox of things that really help us to build, maintain, and even repair our personal brands. And so today I'm really excited to have as my mechanic for this interview, Marsha Petrie Sue. And Marsha, I know we've been really trying so hard to get connected in the last few months, and so thanks so much for us finally getting connected and having you as part of my series.
Well, thank you for your persistence. That was quite a schedule juggling we went through there.
Absolutely. So it's just great that we finally got connected. And so let's just jump right on into the questions I have for you today. And really the first question, if people go to your website, one of the things that really jumps out for me when I went to your website is this tagline that you use, that you're the Muhammad Ali of communicators. Now, I think that's a pretty amazing little branding message right there. So I'm just curious, can you explain what's the story behind this?
Yes, I can. Actually, when I was writing the Toxic People book, and this is something for all the wannabe authors, all the authors, you go out ahead of time and you get testimonials. Because then the publisher, or if you're self-publishing, you can put that on the book. So I went to a very good friend of mine, Dave Rawls, who I worked with at GTE Directories. Well, we went to work together there the same year, 1972. And I said, Dave, you know me, you know my work. I'm writing this book called Toxic People. And would you send me a little testimony of me and how I deal with conflict and such? And he was the one that said, well, you definitely are the Muhammad Ali of communications and conflict resolution. I would love to tell you, Peter, that I'm that clever, but I'm not. So I think the real message here is you have to pay attention to how people brand you. And the minute you hear those ones that have good alliteration, they have a good flow, they're unique, they're different, and you talk about this all the time, man, you glom onto that. And I asked Dave, I said, would you mind if I use that as my moniker? And he says, hey, be my guest. So there it is.
Awesome. That's great. Well, speaking about, writing books, etc., you wrote a book back in 2002 called The CEO of You.
Yes.
And, this was at a time, as you probably are aware, when really personal branding was still not really mainstream. It was really kind of coming out of its shell at that time. So when you wrote this book, were you really thinking of it as a personal branding book or something else?
A personal branding book, and not only personally, but also business-wise.
Right.
So however you're looking to market yourself, and that's the hardest part, as you know, for most people, is to put a little hook by their name. So for an example, when I introduced myself, my other moniker is the decontaminator of toxic people. So when people ask me, they say, what do you do? I don't say I'm a professional speaker or author. I say I'm the decontaminator of toxic people, or I will say I'm the Muhammad Ali of communications. So, and then people go, really? What does that mean? Tell me more. So you've got them hooked. So I realized that a long time ago, Peter, and I think that really is important to take personal responsibility for your own marketing and the way that you position yourself. Whether you're an entrepreneur, whether you're an intrapreneur, no matter what you are, you've got to know what you're all about and what makes you unique. I think the message was important back then in 2002. It is even more important today with the economy throughout the world being as difficult as it is. What makes you unique?
So I'm just, kind of building off of that, when you think about 2012 versus 2002, what do you think is the biggest difference really within the personal branding space? I'm just kind of curious about that. As you mentioned, the economy is one thing, but has there been anything else that you think has really made or helped personal branding to kind of come to where it is right now?
I think the internet, and I also think you mentioned it, the social media,
Right.
because what you want to do, I do a lot of Facebook, and I try to post different quotes. As you know, I post a lot of my personal stuff, and I post not only on my site, but I try to get in on other people's site too, because it helps you in the Google search,
Sure,
as
sure,
you know.
sure.
And so I've been hired within the last, I'm going to say, 2 to 3 months, just because people Googled communication expert.
Perfect.
It had nothing to do with my name, but I know that that's something people look for. So when I post, when I write an article, when I blog, whatever I do, I have a list of about 15 keywords
Excellent.
that I use in there so that it brings me up in the Google search.
Yeah, that's perfect. I mean, so many people say, you know, if you don't show up in Google, you don't exist, and I firmly believe that. And just that example, as you said right there, really kind of proves that too.
Yes.
Now, you mentioned kind of the word toxic a couple of times, and in the books that have followed since the CEO of you know, you have this interesting theme which kind of centers around toxic people, nuclear reactors, etc. And so, tell me more about this and why you chose this imagery.
It's a hook.
Yeah.
And I don't know how else to say it. It's a hook. It's memorable. People remember it. They may not remember Marsha Petrie Sue, but they'll say, you know, you're the one that talks about that toxic stuff, aren't you? And I sure am. I don't care if they ever remember my name, as long as they remember something along that line. And toxic people, I mean, I've heard that, and that was coined, I'm going to say, 40 years ago by someone, actually a gentleman, and I believe he was out of England, that actually gave that hook. And in doing my research for difficult people, which I was speaking on years before I wrote the book, you saw a lot of people referring to toxic people, and I thought, what a cool name for a book. And then, of course, the byline is the real hook. If you can get people to see those 2-3 letters in your title, and then it's toxic people, how to decontaminate difficult people at work without using weapons or duct tape. You see that, people laugh, just like you're doing, and they say, "Oh yeah, I got those."
Now, do you have that on your business card?
Yes.
Perfect, perfect. Yeah, I was talking to someone recently about this whole idea of how do you kind of brand yourself with your business card, because you know, we get so many business cards, but you know, what are the ones that really stand out? And so, you know, whether it's the tagline or as you said, you know, for me, I like on the back of my card, I have the picture of me on my bicycle, you know, and it just says personal branding with a spin. And I have found that in subsequent networking events that I've gone to, you know, people will walk up to me and say, "Hey, you're the guy who's on the bicycle on the business card." And you know, exactly, it's like they don't remember my name, which is fine.
Don't care.
It does not matter. That's awesome.
Right. Well, and the other thing I do on the back side of my card, number one, it says decontaminator of toxic people instead of president or whatever of my company. And then on the flip side, I actually have the covers of my books, of the last 3 books that I wrote, which includes toxic people.
Perfect, perfect. Excellent, excellent. Now, you know, one of the things I wanted to ask you is, you know, kind of pick your brain about your, you know, top 3 tips for helping people to, as you say, take personal responsibility for their choices. And so, if you could share you know, your top 3 tips that you would recommend for that.
Well, number one, it's attitude. And it's attitude about yourself, it's attitude about the world, it's attitude about what you want to be when you grow up. I think that, and one of my favorite quotes is this: a positive attitude may not solve all your problems, but it will tick off enough people to make it worth the effort.
Yeah, very nice. Yeah.
So I really believe that, and I had to learn how to have a positive attitude, because when I was raised, my mother did not. And so I had to actually figure out why this was important. I think the second part of that is resilience. Because life is not fair, life is not easy, get over it. It is what it is.
Right.
So the resilience, when you get chopped down a little bit, someone says something negative or whatever it is, so what? You know, it's only their perspective, it's only their opinion. It's not the real truth. And I think the third thing is to maintain focus, to make sure that you do establish goals, you understand the importance of affirmations, and you really keep planting that seed, because life will take over very quickly if you don't.
Right. Yeah, you know, I remember once writing about this whole idea of how important it is to actually embrace criticism. You know, when people do criticize some of the things you're doing, I mean, we can approach it from criticizing right back, but what's the point of doing that?
Right.
It really, that to me, it's the critique that really enables us to look at things very differently. Hey, I didn't think about that, and maybe
Right.
that it's actually a chance for growth or change or what have you. But it's hard, I think, as
Very
people,
hard.
people are people, and we like to just kind of point the finger and criticize right back.
Well, and that's it. And I think one of the communication techniques that we can use when people give us their criticism is to say, you may be right. Help me understand where that's coming from. Help me understand what I displayed so that I know what to change.
Excellent.
Rather than wearing it on your sleeve, becoming upset, doesn't solve anything.
Sure.
If I can find out more, if I can ask them questions and really listen to the answers, now that's true growth.
Yeah, totally. And now, as we mentioned before, with social media,
yes,
I talk to students now as they're starting to get ready for their careers and how important it is to really be careful of what you say online. But regardless of that, I mean, this is for anybody. I mean, we could respond to something that was said about us online in a very negative way, but what you put online stays there as well. And so, there's techniques that we have to think about in order to do that. So, well, as I mentioned, you're one of the mechanics of personal branding. I've now dubbed you a mechanic of personal branding.
Thank you.
And so, again, someone who has tools and techniques that really help us to build, maintain, and repair our personal brands. So, to use a cycling image, because I'd love to do this, I want you to imagine someone's personal brand has a flat tire. And what advice would you give this person to really pump up their personal brand so that they're ready to ride again?
Don't focus on it. And what I highly recommend is to make a Ben Franklin list where you have the positives and the negatives, because we will drill that down and absolutely annihilate our thinking. The average person right now thinks 77% of the time negatively.
That's right.
I can't, I won't be able to. And when that flat tire happens, man, you'll get into that negative spiral, and it is really difficult to bounce back from that. So don't dwell on it. I also think you have to focus on your strengths. So when you're doing that Ben Franklin list, look at all the things that you do well, because I am totally convinced that there are people that have been put on this earth to suck the life out of you. And isn't it true?
Yes.
And I am not going to let that ever happen to me ever again.
Great. Excellent. Excellent. Well, I think do you think it's a product of our society or upbringing in the sense that we do focus on our weaknesses? Because that's really, that's the easiest thing to do rather than focusing on what we're good at, right?
Right. And I also think that the entire environment for years and years past, plus today, you turn on the news, for an example, in the morning, or you turn on the TV. Is it positive?
No.
I don't think so.
Yeah.
Exactly. And all that does is set the stage for that negativeness. Exactly. And so I won't do it in the morning. I have my little one-page set up with my news, and I know what I want to see. I want to see what's blown up, what hasn't, what's going on, and I'm done. It takes me about 45 seconds. I am not going to listen to whatever news channel in the morning and let it suck the life out of me, because it will.
Yeah, that's perfect. That's why I stopped buying a newspaper years ago. It's just no point.
Yeah.
It's the same thing every day, right?
Yes.
Well, hey, if people want to get in touch with you, what's the best way for them to stay in touch with you, Marsha?
Well, my name is Marsha Petrie Sue. It's Marsha. Next name, which is my maiden name, is Petrie, Petrie, and my last name is Sue, S-U-E. Yes, I married a boy named Sue. So that's Marsha Petrie Sue on Facebook, or Twitter is MPSUE. And my email is marsha@marshapetrisue.com. Website, marshapetrisue.com. Try to keep it simple.
Excellent. Are you in the process of writing anything new? You have another book coming up at any time in the future?
No, I'm kind of toying around, and I'm keeping some ideas now. I want it to be called SOS, Stamp Out Stupidity.
I love it.
I am so tired of people just doing stupid stuff and not taking personal responsibility. So I'm thinking that might be the next title.
Wonderful. Well, you've all heard it here. Stay tuned for Stamp Out Stupidity. I love it. That's just another catchy title, easy to remember. And so I really thank you so much. I'm really glad that we finally were able to connect and that you could share some of your tips and the insights with us today. So thank you so much, and thank you everybody for tuning in. please take a look. You'll see more information on this the blog post where you'll see this video where you can connect with Marsha directly. I'll have her website there and her social media contacts as well. And so definitely connect and stay tuned and learn about how to stamp out stupidity and whatever. It's just wonderful. So thank you so much, Marsha.
Thank you, Peter.
Take care.